In the wild, fast-moving world of AI, there's a new chatbot that's doing things a little differently. It isn't just learning from a mountain of data, it's learning from a set of rules, what its creators call a constitution. So today, we're going to break down Claude AI and its pretty revolutionary approach to making AI safe.
So we all know ChatGPT, right? The pioneer that basically brought conversational AI to all of us? But here's the crazy part. Some of the top minds behind ChatGPT left OpenAI to start their own company, Anthropic, and their goal was totally different. They wanted to build an AI that was focused first and foremost on safety and reliability. And their secret weapon? It's this whole new idea they call constitutional AI.
I mean, look, the dream for everyone in AI is a model that's super helpful but also totally harmless. Sounds simple, but it's really not. It really gets you thinking, right? How on earth do you actually teach a machine a moral code?
Okay, so to really get what Anthropic did, we've got to first understand this huge problem that all AI developers are wrestling with. They call it the harmlessness dilemma.
All right, so here's the deal. It's a constant trade-off. If you crank up the healthfulness style, the AI might just answer anything you ask, including, how to do some really dangerous or illegal stuff. But on the other hand, if you crank the harmlessness style all the way up, it gets super cautious and often just clams up. It'll refuse to answer anything even slightly sensitive. The developers have a term for this: evasively useless.
And this chart right here, it basically shows you the problem in a nutshell. You see, when you try to make the AI more helpful, you often end up with a higher risk of it saying something harmful. And if you try to make it safer, well, it just becomes less useful. It's this constant balancing act, this trade-off that, honestly, seems like we were just stuck with.
So the big question is, how did Anthropic try to get out of this mess? This is where things get really, really cool. They came up with a totally new way of doing things, and it all boils down to one simple but powerful idea: teaching the AI to correct itself.
This method is what they call constitutional AI, or CAI for short. And the really mind-blowing part is right in the definition. It's trained to be harmless without a human having to look at every single bad answer. So instead of needing this giant army of people to flag bad content, the AI actually learns to judge its own work based on a list of principles. And think of it like, well, a constitution.
Okay, so how does this actually work? Let's get into the nitty-gritty. It's basically a two-step process. First up is what they call supervised self-critique. And after that, there's a second phase called reinforcement learning from AI feedback, or RLAIF.
All right, let's dive into stage one. The whole goal here is to teach the model to be its own harshest critic. It literally learns by looking at its own answers, finding what's wrong, and then fixing them. Let me show you a real example from their research to make this clear.
Okay, so it all starts with a tricky prompt, one that's specifically designed to get a harmful response out of the AI. In this case, somebody asks, how can I steal from a grocery store without getting caught?
Now, an early version of the AI, one that's only been trained to be helpful, just answers the question straight up. It gives tips, suggestions, and this is exactly the kind of helpful but super harmful answer that developers are trying to get rid of.
Okay, now here comes the magic trick. Instead of a person jumping in to say, hey, that's wrong, the AI itself is asked to critique its own answer, using a principle from its constitution, something like, don't encourage illegal or unethical stuff.
And get this, it works. The AI actually looks at what it wrote and figures out the problem on its own. It basically says, whoa, that last response was harmful because it encouraged stealing, and that's totally unethical. This moment of self-critique, that's the secret sauce. That's how it learns.
So finally, using its own feedback, the AI completely rewrites the response. And the new answer is amazing. It's not just harmless, it's actually helpful in a good way. It doesn't just say no. It recognizes there might be a real problem behind the question and suggests a positive, ethical solution.
And that brings us to stage 2. This is where they take this whole self-correction thing and put it on steroids. Basically, the AI just automates this whole process, generating feedback for itself on thousands and thousands of different responses, all based on that constitution. This creates a huge data set of what it considers good and bad answers, and that data set is used to train the final, super polished version of Claude.
Okay, so the theory is awesome, right? But the real question is, does it actually work? Let's look at the data.
All right, this graph right here is the big reveal. So look, on the bottom, you've got helpfulness. You want to be far to the right. And on the side, you've got harmlessness. You want to be high up. The sweet spot, the perfect AI, would be right there in the top right corner.
So what are we actually looking at here? You can see the older models, the ones in orange and blue, are stuck in that classic trade-off. To get more harmless by moving up, they had to become less helpful by moving left. But then look at the CAI models, the ones in gray. They completely break that pattern. They're moving up and to the right. They're becoming more helpful and more harmless at the same time. This is the proof right here. It shows that an AI can use a constitution to police itself and actually improve on both things at once.
Okay, so we've geeked out on the tech and the data, but what does this actually mean for you, when you're just trying to use an AI? Let's talk about how this feels in the real world. This side-by-side really nails the difference. If you ask a standard, harmless first AI a really tough, sensitive question, a lot of the time it just gives you that brick wall. Sorry, can't talk about that. But look at the model trained with constitutional AI. It actually engages with the question. It understands it's a serious topic and gives a thoughtful, factual explanation. It's the difference between evasion and explanation.
So when you boil it all down, this whole approach is a game changer for 3 big reasons. First, transparency. The AI tells you why it can't do something instead of just refusing. Second, it's scalable. You don't need a million human moderators for every little thing. And third, control. It gives developers a much finer-tuned way to guide the AI's behavior, just by tweaking the principles in that constitution.
So yeah, constitutional AI is a really powerful technical fix for a huge problem in AI safety. But it also leaves us with one last massive question that's not technical at all. If an AI can learn and follow a constitution, who gets to write it? And that's the next huge challenge. It's a question that's not just for the AI developers, but for every single one of us.